Hello everyone. I'm thrilled to have you all during for this webinar. This is as Mirai said, this is the first of a long series, we hope. For the first one, we wanted to talk about DHIS2 and see if it could match your needs in terms of for your M&E programs, if it could be the right tool for you. So I'll make a presentation. I'll go through also various DHIS2 instances. I will demo some of these DHIS2 instances, and we'll finish with a question session. So my use case for today, the main instance I will show you, it's a distribution of HIV autotests in 3 countries, different locations. These the facilities are managed by different NGOs, so we have different organizations working on this project. We want to know the number of beneficiaries by category. We also want to have an idea of how much tests do I have in stock. So we will need to collect information, and we have a disaggregation of this information by age and gender. And there is also an outline put in place for beneficiary satisfaction and beneficiary who are looking for services, especially how to use these auto-tests. I want to thank Soltis for letting us share this DHIS2 instance, and I also want to share Rashida from Morocco, who is here, because I will show you also your instance. As a monitoring referent, as an M&E meal referent, okay, I'm in charge of the M&E of a project. What do I have to deal with? I have to deal with a log frame, a logical framework. I have a list of indicators that could be raw numbers, results of calculation, some rates, ratios. I need to disaggregate this information either by location, by age, category, by sex. And I have sometimes baseline, but most of the time I have target values I need to reach. I have to deal with a variety of data collection systems, reporting. I need to collect aggregate data, so I need to collect numbers in different forms. I need to collect information on beneficiaries also. And I can have to deal with paper forms, Excel sheets, local databases, a variety of sources and collection systems. At the end, in order to know also if I'm in the right way to reach my targets, I will need to create charts, share tables and maps to my management to help them making decision on the project. And I will have to deal with the access and the user management I will show you in the DHIS2 system. Not everybody needs to know everything, so yeah, I need to split the access between user types. So my challenge, I have this project I need to monitor. I will need to go through 5 steps if I want to set up a DHIS2 platform. The first one, I will need to deal with hosting. I need to find a server. Then I need to deal with my organization units and my users. Organization units is the vocabulary from DHIS2. It's basically the hierarchy I am working in. And then I will need to set up my data collection systems. I will need to process my data in order to have the right results for my indicators. And I will need to create visual elements such as the maps, tables, and charts on my dashboards and share these with my colleagues and my management. So my steps. We'll go through these different steps. The first one, so DHIS2 is known as an open source system. It means that it is free of charge. There is no license to pay, and you can install it on your computer locally. Okay, but for a project, you will need to have it on a real server. So you will have hosting constraints. You will have to pay for the hosting. So you can decide on whether I choose to host it locally or on the cloud. I have several options. We are part of the contractors among with Biosystems, IT for Life, the various HISP around the world. So you can deal with a contractor, but you can also ask your IT team if you could host your DHIS2 database in local servers from your organization. It's pretty quick. It can be done within a day. You will need to find or to choose a URL, and you can use your domain name if you are using your own server. So in my example, we will use the DHIS2.soltis.org. So the URL from your DHIS2 can look like this: DHIS2 plus the name of your organization. And if you choose to work with a contractor, we have three different cost contracts depending on the size, from 150 euros per month for a little small size to 400 euros per month for big size. My organization units and my users. I'll start with my organization units. Usually, when you when you set up your DHIS2 server, so the first task is to choose the top node of your org units. Usually, and I put an example here, I work in an NGO. I can have several cells. Each cell will be in charge of several countries. In each country, I can have several projects working in different locations. So usually it mimics the hierarchy of your organizations. So here, for instance, I have 5 levels. The organization 1, cell, country, project, and location. I can also create organization unit groups. For instance, if I have different types of locations, private schools versus public schools, I can create organic groups that I will be able to use for my data analysis and visualization. So this is the first step. Just to know, there is an automatic aggregation of data in the pyramid, meaning that all the data collecting on the field, so here I would say in the 2 locations, they are automatically aggregated at project level, country level, cell level, and NGO level, meaning that on top you see you have all the information aggregated, all the monitoring aggregation information aggregated in your headquarters. Then I will, so once I have formalized, configured these my pyramid, I can start dealing with users. So you don't start with creating users, but you first create user roles. Okay, what my staff needs to be able to make. So I have people who will be in charge of only data collection in the field. I have people who will analyze the data, who will be able to modify the data, will be able to create dashboards, maps. And I will have one or a few persons who will be in charge of the administration of the system. So here I put only these 3 standard user roles as data collection, data visualization, and system administration, but you can create other one depending on your needs. So it's super flexible. Then once you have your user roles, you create your users, you give them roles, and you give them access to the location where they work in the hierarchy. So I will have a team of data entry clerks who will be, let's say, in location 1 in charge of data collection, and they will only be able to collect information at that level. At my country level, I will have my a monitoring coordinator who will have access to all the data for the country. So once you have these two, you are able to define the access of your users to the hierarchy as a first step. And I will show you. And a first examples, my Atlas project. So here, when I arrive in DHIS2, when I log in, I have access to the dashboards. By default, on the top right, I can select, here I have all the applications that are available. And for management of my system, I have this very important maintenance app where I can create all the configuration I need for my organization. So here I have this organization units. I define the levels, sorry. So I have SALTIS, country, region, district, facility. And here I have access to all. I have a visual access to all my hierarchy, and I can work on it. I have access. I can create different groups. So here, org units, and the users will have a look at this. So it's another app, users. And here I have my list of users. I have 235. Check, I have 4 user roles and different 8 user groups. So this is the base of my configuration. So org units, users, once I have defined this, I've been through a big step because it takes time to formalize all of this. Then I need to deal with my data collection system. So here in DHIS2, we have 3 different types of data collections. We have aggregate, event, and tracker. Aggregate, in aggregate data model, we mainly collect numbers. It's aggregated data on a defined frequency, could be monthly, quarterly, and routine data collection. The example is a form for a weekly or a monthly report that you're able to set up in DHIS2. You have a paper form that used to be used in the field. You replace it by this form in DHIS2, and I will show you in the next slide. Event, in the event data model, we collect individual data based on the date of event, but we don't track the persons into the system. We don't have to deal with a cohort. This is also used in routine data collection when I want to collect various information on an activity, but also during surveys, any type of surveys. So this is here what mimics the best ODK or COBO forms, any form that you would have to set up for a survey. And then we have the tracker. So here we are still dealing with individual data on the date of each event, but in this system, we are able to track beneficiaries over time in different forms, meaning that we will collect information about these beneficiaries at different phases of my program. And I will show you also example in the next slides. So aggregate, event, and tracker. Aggregate, so as I told you, mainly numbers, but also yes and no answers and some text. But there are no categorical variables. You cannot select an option in a list. You define the periodicity you want to collect on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. And there is a big feature on an important feature on the category combination that are used in the disaggregations. So below in my slide, you see I have added one in a medical one. So I want to have the number of consultations, so the new and the follow-up consultations splitted by gender and age category, but I can also have my morbidity by new and follow-up. So it's very flexible. You play with these categories depending on your needs. And my second example is a number of students who come for the first year in the school or more, splitted by grade and by gender. So it's adapted to any type of data collection. It mimics the forms that you could have on the field. The event program. The information can be any type of variable. You can have text, codes, numbers, yes and no, any type of variable. It's individual and it can be anonymous also. We don't track the information, the data are not attached to the person. So it's adapted to any type of anonymous data collection, such as CAP surveys that you will have to run at the beginning and the end of a project, satisfaction surveys, hotlines, or HIV testing, as this information needs to remain anonymous. So my event, one row of information during my data collection. And then we have the tracker. The information can be also any type of variable that you have in a form, but here you will follow an entity with the ID, meaning that you will have to enroll usually the beneficiary into your cohort. You enroll the person, and then you can use several forms. Here I have the example of an admission one. So on the first date, when the beneficiary comes, I admit this person. Then I have follow-up visits. So here my example is for pregnant women. I admit a pregnant woman. I give her an ID. I collect the pregnancy week. In the follow-up, every time she comes for a CPN visit, I collect information. And at discharge, I collect also information about the mother and the baby. And here I have different forms. And these can be collected through web or mobile data collection. So you could be in the office collecting information from paper forms, and you can use the URL. You connect to internet to the URL, and you can collect, aggregate, event, and tracker. As for the DHIS2 capture, so you install the app on your mobile phone, and you can use it for event and tracker. You cannot collect aggregate data on these, mainly for field activity when you go in remote places and surveys. So you can, as long as you have uploaded the forms, you can collect data offline. I show you what it looks like. So here I have an aggregate form. So I have access to various forms. I select the period, and I can enter data into it. And here I have on the left my organization units. An example of an event here is, so this is a hotline. So I have information about my event. First, the call, the person who calls, then the reasons for calling, and the services delivered during this call. And when I save it, or it's recorded in my database. Can you see my screen? Yeah, okay. I'll go a bit faster to have time for questions. Then you have all sorts of calculation of data processing available in the system. For the aggregate, you can use the standard operators. And for event trackers, you can count what they call program indicators. So you can use the count, sum, average, max. You can work on thresholding. The logic is to run a query calculation and a filter. The advantage for this, especially on the tracker, is that you can count on activities and beneficiaries, meaning that you can, if you are in a medical project, you can count the number of consultations, for instance, but also the number of different people who came, the number of patients, where in most of the systems, it's not possible. And you have an automatic aggregation in time and space in the hierarchy. And then you have all sorts of data visualization features. So you can create dashboards in which you can add tables, charts, and maps. It's adapted to the user rights. You deal, you configure the sharing. You share the dashboards with the people who need to have access to the data. You can filter on periods and on organization units. It's really flexible. You can adapt your visualization to every user of your system. So I have three examples of tables. I have a first table of events. You can see your raw data. Then I have a table with aggregated values. We have 5 indicators by org unit, and you can set up heat maps. So you have a quick visual analysis that is possible. The background color is modified according to the value of your indicator. It allows a quick visual analysis. The charts, I have many charts available, and I can also add a target on line and bar chart. This is very useful. And for maps, I can also play with aggregated values, like display these aggregated values on my maps. I can also specify my GPS points. Here I have a map of facilities, so I can make the difference between facilities. I can display events on my map using GPS coordinates, and I can also use distributions. Here is the value distribution of a variable on GPS coordinates for different visual analysis. What it looks like on my project. Here I have an evolution. So this is the evolution of the number of autotests delivered by month since the beginning of the project. I have several charts. So here you see we have maybe 15 or 20 different dashboards. I also have by channel. These channels are by risk population category, such as sexual workers, MSMs, or drug users. So these represent the evolution of my distribution of autotests. And I have somewhere here maps that here represent my distributions of autotest in my 3 countries, Senegal, Mali, and Ivory Coast. If I go back to my PowerPoint, I forgot this dashboard that contains maps, different types of tables, and chart and a row number. What I didn't show you is here the filter. So as I told you, I can filter on a specific country here, and my charts are automatically being updated. So once I have set up all this system, this is what my DHIS2 instance look like. So on the bottom left, I see that I collect information through mobile phone and desktop. These data end up in my databases that are my DHIS2 instance. I've dealt with users, my organization units, my hierarchy. I have set up my processing, my calculations, and I have created the dashboards. I can export in CSV files if I need the data or image to put them into reports. Extra features, DHIS2 has a powerful API, an application programming interface that allows you to communicate with other data systems, to push to pull data. You can upload and download also metadata and data into your system. If you have historical data based on the last 5 years of your project, it's possible to upload them into DHIS2. You have an SQL view of your data. If you want to write queries, you have a variety of administration and data quality applications, and you have several upgrades per year. This system is being managed by the University of Oslo, and they offer 2 to 3 upgrades every year. You also have access to DHIS2 app stores. You have companies that developed very different types of application depending on the use case they had. It is available. It is for free. You can download, you can install them on your DHIS2 instance. We also have created Bluesquare, 5 different applications that enhance the capability of DHIS2. So my main question and the question for you is DHIS2 the right tool for my program? So DHIS2 is probably a good option for you if you are dealing mainly with quantitative information, if you have to manage facilities in your system, if you work in many different locations, if you have a decentralized data collection with aggregation needs, meaning that data is not collected in one place, but in many different places in the field. If you have multiple users with advanced user management, that you have to deal with different accesses to the system, if you have to deal with multiple types of data collection. So you have aggregate forms, the event forms, and you need to track beneficiaries in a program. DHIS2 is for you. There is a flexible configuration. You can use the different apps. I mean, you have apps for every type of configuration. If you have sustainability needs, so you don't need to pay every year a license, this is open source and you can host locally your data. And if you have a good data manager in your program, this tool is data oriented a lot. So you need a referent. You need someone to be in charge of this system with good data management skills. DHIS2, on the other hand, might not be a good solution for you if you don't have a lot of users, if you don't need a detailed geographical disaggregation, meaning that you collect information only on a few spots. If you deal with qualitative information. If you manage document, if you share document into your system, it's not a result framework like visualization. You don't create activities. You don't assign them to people. You don't create your project in the system and then create your monitoring tool. So it's not a activity and task tracking. So you don't assign the tasks, you don't update their status, you don't monitor in time with DHIS2. And it might not be a good opportunity for you if you're dealing with complex cohort monitoring. If you have to enroll families, and then on top of this, if you have to enroll the parents and the children, and you have to create extra forms, this DHIS2 is not adapted to your need. So as a summary, DHIS2 is an open source online data repository. It's used in more than 70 countries, mainly in ministries of health and NGOs, but it's also used in other sectors, such as environment, education. For instance, I'm working in Conakry on a management of the waste in Conakry city. For configuration, you can configure users, organization units, your data collection system, data processing, the dashboard in the so in this data model, we saw aggregate event tracker. You can either configure everything through menus, but also working with the API. There are several upgrades per year, but also online academies in different languages. You can learn online, at least for the first steps. It's used by more and more NGOs. It's used by the 5 MSF sections, PSI, Merisstops, IPPF or Saltis, and other ones. And here I listed the different URL that you can use. But if you're looking, you can use Google, but you will find all these communities. You have the community of users, of developers. You have a sandbox you can connect to, and then you can play with it. You can create your forms, your dashboards. And you have access to academies also. So this is the end for the presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. I can go through the DHI instances, continue, and if you have questions, don't hesitate.
Thanks, Olivier. Thanks for the great presentation. So we're going to jump to some questions that we had. And so please go ahead and do post your questions in the Q&A if you have some. You've been quite shy so far, so please go ahead. We do have some questions that arise from when people signed up for the webinar. So I'm just going to go through a few of them. So there was one question that came a couple of times regarding how do you actually sort of do data quality control or data auditing in DHIS2? Is this possible with DHIS2?
So in DHIS2, you have validation processes. You can create rules, validation rules in your system, and that you can run once you have finished your data collection. So this is one of the possibilities. And you can also create your dashboard based on rules that will, I would say, filter on potential data wrong information. I missed the word, but on discrepancies of data. Here you have an app that is based on data quality. So here I have validation rules. So I don't have here. You have the analysis of your validation rule. You have standard deviation, outlier analysis, min and max that you will have set up, and follow-up analysis.
Okay.
So it is possible. I could show you in another session all of these. But,
yeah, I think that would be a good one. We have a question from Apollinaire asking, how does it work when you upload data to the DHIS2? What's the process of doing that? And I'm not sure if we can do a demonstration right now because I don't know if we have something prepared for this, but yeah, can you explain a little bit how the data importing works?
Yes, so you need to basically in the database you need to define at which location you want to import your data, at which organization unit, which information you want to collect. So you need basically in the data table you have one row per data point. So you will need to put in an Excel, in a CSV file, you will need to you will have a row for the org unit, a row for what they call data element, the variable, and you will have a column for the period or the date, and you will have a column for the value that you will import. And once you have defined these, you have here this import export app that allows you to import data. So here you choose the format that you have. Mainly we're working with JSON, XML, and CSV. If you want to make a dry run, like to test if it's working or not, and it will show you will have a log file on where are the problems during this dry run. But you first need to set up like to have this to have your data file into the right import format, and we have standard for this because yeah, we've been used to do it.
Thanks, Olivier. So maybe just to go full circle on this specific question, how do you export data then? How does it work?
So here I have I think I can turn my camera on. So that now you know I'm not a bot. Here in the same app you have the data export, so you can export the metadata, you can export data and event. So here I have access to, I can select filter on my org unit where I want to export data for. I can select I can select the data, the data sets I want to. So a data set is for the aggregate. The data set I want to export data for, and the format. I select also the period. And then I click, and I'll have a data file exported.
Cool. So you can do a lot of exporting, lots of different ways.
Yeah. You can.
Wonderful. So, so I have a couple more questions. I'm going to try to process them in a bit of a logical order. Keeping on data itself, is there can DHIS2 handle like large data sets? Like, is it good for like a large data set management? Can it scale basically? I think that's the question.
It depends on the size of the data set, but you will have to adapt the size of your server. So you'll have to adapt the size of your server on the number of data points that you will collect. In your data sets, you are able to split your data sets into sections, and you can add as many category options as needed. So you can, here I have 3-4 tables, but yeah, that's manageable. When I was working for MSF, for the French section, we had a table with 200 rows, one per disease for morbidity. So yeah, it depends on the size, but I'd say yes, it's manageable.
It does scale, yeah. And so if we come back maybe to the dashboards, there's also a couple questions regarding what you can you just like download one of these charts? Like, can you download them? Can you get the data out of them? You know, if I want to put this in my report, like, how do I do that? Like, is there a way to do that?
Yeah, there are ways. Let me find the table. Okay, I'll do another way. Oh, here they have there's a new feature in the last version, so you can modify the format of a chart. You can change it into table or map. So if you need the data, you can change this element into a table. Then you can open it. No, I think I opened it as a table.
The question is whether you can get the data.
Yeah, you can
chart or get the chart directly.
So here you can export it as an image if you want to put it in a report, and then here you have the data. So you can export it into different formats. So you have XML, Excel, CSV. Again, I can try. Yeah,
cool.
Here it is.
Awesome. So please go ahead and send more questions. We have one interesting question from Florian regarding. So it's a more complex one. So, but like I think interesting for people here to discuss regarding the process for switching from, let's say, a DHIS2 instance you have for a project to something more like, and you know, configure this or bring it to the national level, for example, in a country, you know, supporting the MOH. So from your perspective, from your experience, like what are the different, like, let's say, issues we might face regarding the technical complexity, the human resources? Is this like a complex, long process? Like, what are more or less the determinants? I know it's a wide question, but I think it's an interesting one.
So is it about handing over a project being handing over by a national instance, let's say Ministry of Health?
Yeah, I think that we could scope it like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Florian. Most of the, if it's about the most of the ministries of health have DHIS2 instances. They have a team dedicated to hosting. They have data managers and reference on this. So they should have an instance, a DHIS2 instance, and usually what we are doing is that we are making a copy of this instance if possible, and we are mapping our system with the current system. And what is the most difficult is mapping organization units, as you might not have the same IDs, the same ID codes behind every org unit. So you can map the org units with the current system, and then we can export all this, all the configuration we have, so metadata and data, into the national instance, and we train the people. So it's also one of the advantage to use the DHIS2 is that locally you have skilled teams in the Ministry of Health. So it's possible. I'd say the most time consuming is the mapping between data elements, but especially org units. But it's possible if that's the question. But yeah, it could take several months. But yeah, it's definitely possible.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I think globally it's a difficult process, but it's very much possible. DHIS2 is built for this at the get-go, so national health systems. So let me see. We have a few other questions regarding. So I think you kind of answered this, but maybe to clarify, like clearly, like you could can you confirm that we can store any type of data in DHIS2, and that it's really about like it's not really matter what type of information you're storing as long as you use DHIS2 to manage it.
Yeah, you can. If I create a data element, so data element is the name for a
piece of information.
For a variable, sorry, and you have various types, and they already added the document. So you have files. They basically at the beginning, they had dates, sorry, text, yes, no, yes, only, date and time. You have integers, intervals, percentage. You have all of these. You can also have GPS coordinates. Now you can also collect organization units from your system. You can collect URLs, but also files. We started to use this as a proof of activity. In a project, the team was uploading a file into a data element, and they added the image. So yeah, you have all of the possible type of information.
One more, we have time for a couple more questions. So there's one question regarding M&E frameworks. So is it possible to track M&E frameworks or M&E plans progress in DHIS2?
Yes, if I understand properly. So here it's an example of a Moroccan project we call Code Unique, based on it's a tracking of risk population. It's a harm reduction project related to HIV. And let me know if that answers the question. But what I would do is that here we have a list of 33 indicators that you can follow up, and you can create one chart per indicator to see the evolution of your indicator. And for me, that would make the job. You would be able to have to know the progress of your indicators. That's how I would do using these features.
I'm trying to type answers at the same time. Thanks, that's clear.
But you have to, yeah, based on your log frame, you would have created all your indicators, and then you can sum them up into one table, and you can create one indicator per one chart per indicator.
So we have another question, I think, which is related to integrations. So can you tell us a bit more about the main, let's say, the main or most useful or most used integrations that DHIS2 has with other systems, such as maybe Tableau, Power BI, or any other like database things? That's more for the output, but maybe an input as well. Like can you just tell us a little more about that?
I'll talk about a person. I'm not an API specialist of the API, but I know that we can do serious stuff with it. I remember working with MSF Spain and working on an event program. So, and the engineer so it was a web app that was helping the doctors on the field to make a diagnosis. There was an algorithm behind it, and the system was pushing every night the new event to the program, and the dashboard was automatically updated every night. So it looks pretty simple as long as you do the job on the mapping. So you provide the metadata information, the IDs of your metadata to the counterpart, and you create a user that has access you open a door into the system with a specific user, and this person will be either able to push data into DHIS2 or pull data into Tableau, Power BI, any other or any other data visualization system. So it goes in both ways. But yeah, it reaches my limits on API. But that's what I like for DHIS2, is because that you can push data, you can plug other systems onto it.
Cool. So thanks. Oh, wait a minute. We have 1 minute left. Okay, that was Romain answering the question. Okay, cool. So perfect. So I think we're gonna close for today. Thanks so much for your participation. Mireille, do you want to have the last words to wrap up?
Thank you, Guillaume. Thank you, everyone. I think it was an interesting session. So as I said at the beginning, at the end, you will be asked to answer a few questions. And also feel free to contact us if you have particularly questions or inquiries. We are there to listen, and we also send you the presentation. The next session will be on September, next September. And we will share with you the topic. It can be it should be around mobile data collection, and also feel free if you want us to try to any subject. Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Thank you everyone. Thank you for your attention. I hope it was useful, and we stay in touch.